Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Radnor Township School District Curriculum Committee meeting for February 20th, 2018. First item on our agenda is introductions and administrative remarks.
Thank you very much. Okay, so on tonight's agenda we have the Technology Integration Study Part 2, and you will notice in our audience tonight we have some guests from the high school. One of the things we mentioned last month is that it would be great to hear some of this information firsthand from the teachers and students who've been working with my.
There's a report that they can't hear you. Is our audio on?
It's on, she just needs it closer.
Yeah. Okay.
Just pull it closer, Maureen.
Yeah, I just gotta move my stuff out of the way.
There you go.
Good.
Okay,
That's better.
It's a learning curve.
Learning curve, a couple more years. All right, so we do have some special guests in our audience that we'll be introducing when we get to that part of the agenda. Next month, fear not, there will be more time to talk about technology next month if we don't get to everything today, but we do want to make sure that there's plenty of time today for discussion because we didn't have much time last month. Okay, other announcements, weather emergency makeup days. As you know, we continue to have different days off, so as of right now, students will have a half day on Monday, June 18th, and the teachers will be reporting on Tuesday, June 19th. We will publish a revised calendar, but we don't do that until after we know that the snow and all of that has passed us. Don't forget about STEM night on April 19th. There's information posted online. And then I'm going to ask, whoops, I mixed them up here. I'm going to ask Dr. Kearney to talk about curriculum surveys, and then Dr. Murray's going to talk about mathematics a bit.
This week there'll be 2 opportunities for parents to provide input going on online on the district's website, as well as being included in the upcoming Radnor readers. One is for the middle school program review, and the other is for the K-12 social studies curriculum audit. Each survey is pretty brief and consists of 3 questions, 1 demographic question, and then 2 open-ended questions. So all parents who have experience with either the middle school or K-12 social studies are encouraged to offer their input. And the group's very interested in hear what they have to say.
And in reference to math, as you walked in today, you may have received a copy of just a handout regarding the Algebra 1 prerequisite skills prep sessions that we're offering. We did offer these last year as well as part of our math placement criteria. We did, as everyone knows, we reviewed our math criteria, went through an extensive plan of just looking at making sure which systems we have in place to make sure students are appropriately placed K through 8 in math. And this was the final piece that we put in place last year just to be able to offer more opportunity for students to take 8th grade algebra, but to be successful in that as well. So this year we're running a little bit differently. The criteria has not changed since last year. And we did offer a prep session last year as well, but we did get some feedback from students and parents and teachers. The sessions last year ran after school and they conflicted with athletics and other events, and we did require students to attend all of them. So this year we're going to run it a little bit differently and do the sessions asynchronously through Schoology. Our teachers will be recording the lessons. The materials will be posted and available through Schoology. And then this will also afford students the opportunity to stop, pause the recording, move at their own pace. There's going to be more time allotted than there was last year, and it'll give students really the opportunity to work at their own pace through the modulars and be able to, again, pause and rewatch videos if needed. To help with that as well, we are also offering a live help session every morning at the Math Help Center at the middle school, which will be available in the library from 7:40 to 8 o'clock. At this point, registration is open for students. This would be for any student who's in course 2, which is 7th grade course 2, and interested in taking Algebra 1 next year. Registration is open through the 28th, and the prep sessions will run March 1st through May 9th.
Great, thank you very much. You have a few action items in your packet as well. The high school has requested approval for 2 different clubs, one of them being Action Earth, which is going to be sponsored by teacher Karen Trazo, working with students to reduce Radnor's carbon footprint. And the other is Cryptocurrency and Blockchain Club, where they're looking at knowledge and opportunities to learn about future forms of currency and blockchain technology. And that is sponsored by Mr. Delaney. Other action items, we have 3 overnight trips in your packet. One of them being the Future Business Leaders of America trip to Hershey. which is scheduled for April 9th. The Radnor High School annual color guard trip to Wildwood. And the Radnor High School English and Social Studies students have the opportunity to travel to the UK for the UK program, and that's in June, just before school gets out. And we also have a gift from the high school PTSA. I know you've had some conversations in some other committee meetings about the lighting that REF was purchasing for, the Radnor Education Foundation was purchasing for the theater program. When students came forward with a proposal for some pretty sophisticated lighting to use during some of the performances. In putting together the funding for that, there were some incidental costs that put the price up beyond the $30,000 they were able to secure from REF. So the PTSA is contributing another $4,000 to that project. And then we have some answers to some questions from last month's meeting. I did give you a packet. We're up to page 5 at the bottom. You'll see questions from February 20th. There was a question about the report on substitutes. The report is updated monthly, and it's posted on the HR page under the Source for Teachers Fill Rate link. I gave you the link there, but it's very easy to find. The district has numerous procedures in place to monitor teacher requests for substitutes and take specific action when there are questionable or unusual requests for absences. We don't have any further plans at this time to report formally on the substitute report at the Board Curriculum Committee meeting, but it is available on a monthly basis. There was a question about looking at the high school integrated courses and their use of computers at home for coursework, and that is being included as part of the technology integration study. An update on concussions. At the May 8th Board Curriculum Committee meeting, the athletic directors from both the middle school and the high school will be here, and they're going to be offering a presentation on contact sports and the procedures and practices in place to protect our Radnor students from injury. We did have few questions about Mandarin. We did, in fact, contact multiple districts and do a great deal of research, including a full audit of the World Language Program before the offering was added to the Program of Studies. When we had the Program of Studies meeting back on December 12th, Mr. Bechtel did share the plan to move Radnor forward if interest warrants and a backup plan for next year. As of right now, there will be no further information shared unless the information from Mr. Bechtel changes. So updates on that won't come until after registration. There was a question about, can we offer more than one section of watershed at the middle school? While the watershed program at the middle school is indeed popular, the school does house a wide variety of students with diverse needs and interests, and this is just one of the many programs that the students look forward to at the middle school. In fact, some students that are selected for the integrated lotteries opt to participate in other programs, like sometimes the accelerated courses or whatever it is that meets their needs and interests. The goal of the middle school program is to offer a wide variety of offerings and allow students and families to work with teachers to make choices that best meet their needs. How was the 115-pound weight class for football determined? The weight classes for football participation does come from our local athletic league. The league uses historical data and other information to identify the weight classes, and they have made periodic changes to them over the years. They have changed in recent years, for instance, from 3 weight classifications to just 2. So that guidance comes from them. Do we use the most highly rated football helmets? Our helmets at Radnor High School are professionally inspected and certified annually, so we send them out, they're inspected, there's recommendations whether or not we keep them or replace them at that point. They do get a certification sticker and number on them, and they are replaced on a rotating basis. The most recent purchase of football helmets occurred last year, and again on May 8th when we do that presentation on contact sports, we'll hear a little bit more about that. There was a question about bring your own technology at the high school. Students are welcome to bring their own devices to the high school. We do support that. Some bring laptops. Obviously, many bring telephones. Some people have Apple Watches and things like that that they do connect to our network. They are welcome to connect to the school network, which is considered the student iNet, and it is filtered just like the network that students would participate in if they were on a school district machine. There was a question about how many service agreements we had in Radnor Township School District. So for students that have a documented disability, they can receive a document that gives them accommodations for various subject areas. And as of today, we have approximately 150 across the district, across the 5 buildings. And that's it for questions. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Amazing. What a wealth of information. Okay, that brings us to the next item on our agenda, which would be public comment. Is there any public comment at this time?
Cindy Spurtle, 106 Valley Bridge Terrace, Wayne. Thank you for the long report. Which brought further questions in. The substitute report for teachers that will no longer be, or hasn't ever been, will not be discussed during committee meetings. And it's posted on the website, is that correct?
Yes, on the HR page.
It's part of the transfer over to curriculum, at least my understanding, or what we used to do in finances, there was a discussion of the trend of substitutes and what the school district was doing about it, if anything. So if a discussion like that could be had during committee meetings, that would be appreciated. It's not just the numbers and percentages, it's what's going to be done, because the percentages were pretty high in the last report, that continuing to increase the number of substitutes needed monthly is the way the trend is heading. I haven't looked at the report. On the answer to the watershed, in further digging into that, it is a popular class. I guess the question was asked, because it's been discussed in the past, is there a possibility of offering two? Is there always been my understanding there's a waiting list where it's the most popular class offered, and is there any possibility at all that there may be two offered? Are there students that are unhappy because they end up in another class, even though there are other opportunities available that are popular? And on the Bring Your Own Tech Device program, listening to the explanation on that, it sounds like there really isn't a program. It's just that students can bring their own and hook into the iNet, if that's the case. And if it's the correct, my interpretation. And the other is overnight student trips. The decision on which trips to fund or not to fund has been moved to the curriculum committee. And I know there's a policy that's going to be written on it. If you will refresh my memory as to when that policy is to be completed by, I would appreciate it. I think there's a policy that's going to be written on how decisions to finance are made. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spurtle. Is there any other public comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll move into our agenda item. We already did, we already did the stuff for the meeting. So that brings us to the technology integration
Did you
study.
approve your minutes?
Oh, wait, we need to approve the minutes. Right, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, approval of the January 16th, 2018 curriculum committee meeting minutes. Committee? Okay, they will stand as written. Then we already did 4.1, board action items. So that brings us to 4.2.
So that's actually approved.
You just have to recommend that we move into the full board agenda.
You just go yes or no. The technology integration study part 2.
Great. Thank you very much. Were there any questions about board action items? Okay, thank you. All right, well, we are going to invite our teachers and our students from Radnor High School to come up and join us. And grab a couple extra microphones. Do you want to do that? No, we're going to keep this over. Yeah. Yes, keep a couple of these. It'll be an opportunity.
These three are on right now. That one's not on right now. Not the immediate thought.
Can you guys share?
Maybe the first.
So how about we start with introductions? I'm going to ask the teachers and students to introduce themselves. We'll do a couple refresher slides. It'll take like 2 minutes, and then we're going to jump right into talking to our panel.
Todd Miller, Social Studies.
Charlene Mastro, Spanish and English Language.
Allie Bauer, 9th grader at Radnor High School.
I am Cameron Carvabani, I'm a senior at Matt Berzani, Social Studies at the high school.
Michelle Wetzel, high school librarian.
And Erica Benedict, the math department.
Thank you very, very much for joining us today. One of the things I mentioned at the beginning is that, we've done a lot of paper and PowerPoints and charts and graphs and things like that about the technology study. But this is our opportunity as we near the end to really bring things to life and hear some firsthand examples of what technology does for us at Radnor High School. So as you know, we talked last time about the purpose of our study, and we focused last time on questions 1 and 2 regarding the impact on teaching and learning, and also how devices could or should impact Radnor High School. Today, we're going to wrap that piece up with our panel, and we're going to move ahead to questions 3 and 4, which are going to talk more about what device, and also we'll begin to get into the financial impact of putting a new device in place at Radnor High School. As you know, we have a 3-phase timeline. Part 1 was looking at what we learned from the high school, and then part 2 coming forward with those recommendations, which we began in February, and then we're going to be coming back to you in September to talk more about the middle school and the elementary school and how everything K-12 is going to fit together. We have our belief statements that I shared with you last time. They're in your packet for you to reference, so I won't go over those again today. And then today, our focus is really on kicking off with getting some information from the source. You heard your introductions from our students and teachers, and we're going to move into a couple questions to get our panel conversation started. But if at any time you want to do a follow-up question, or if there's something specific you'd like to know about from a teacher or from a student, please feel free to jump in. Folks on the panel, whoever feels comfortable, to share the microphones a little bit, please jump in. Don't feel like you have to answer every question, but if you have something that you feel should be heard, please raise your hand or grab a microphone and let us know, and we'll try to get to everybody. So our one-to-one program at the high school has been in place for 6 years. Do you feel that Radnor High School continues to need one-to-one technology at the high school? And if so, can you tell us some things about the ways you've seen technology impact teaching and learning?
Okay, so I would say that we definitely need to continue the one-to-one program at Radnor for a couple of reasons. So, firstly, I believe that having a one-to-one device for each student gives that student a sense of responsibility that they need to care for that device because it's in their possession 100% of the time, which fosters responsibility that will be even more necessary as they move into college and their adult life. Secondly, students need to be able to work on their schoolwork both at home and at school, and having a personal device makes this more efficient. And lastly, not having one-to-one devices increases the possibility that some students who have the financial means will bring their own devices to school, whereas other students who may not share the same privilege will not be able to do so, increasing inequity and division within the student body.
To follow up from a teacher perspective, the impasse to decide whether Radnor High School needs technology, I believe, is far gone. The high school absolutely needs technology. We are at one of the highest performing schools in the entire state of Pennsylvania. To do our students justice, to provide them with the absolute best resources, and those resources are compiled on the internet for the most part, and we see that, I have Michelle Wetzel sitting next to me, who is a media resource herself and catalogs those resources for us through the internet in the library. So just providing our students the absolute best resources is imperative. Technology as an educator has allowed me to do my job more efficiently. I can spend more time with my students one-on-one. I can spend more time planning, less time setting up, less time worrying about where a paper went. where a student's homework is when they can submit it to Schoology. And we're going to discuss Schoology later, so I don't want to get too deep into how wonderful that learning management system is. But just in terms of do we need technology, as a young educator, I can tell you that one thing that attracts me to this school district and to continue working for the school district was its investment in technology. And if we want to continue to be a top school district, we need to continue to attract top talent. And a great technology program attracts top talent. And for that reason alone, I feel technology is incredibly important for our high school.
I agree. I just would like to add that the communication is also so big with technology. If I ever have any questions, I can just message my teacher, and it's just really easy. And that also goes along with Schoology, but I know that we're going to get into that later.
Thank you very much. How about question number 2? We talked about, in what ways do you measure the impact technology has on learning?
I can speak a little bit. So, one thing that I appreciate, sorry, I'm a little too close. One thing I appreciate about the iPad is the ability and the opportunities for student activities and student engagement. So, for example, there's an app called Nearpod, and it allows me to kind of create a presentation and then show it to the students, and they actually can submit responses anonymously to my account, and then I'm able to kind of interact with the responses, put it up on the board and show the entire class, again, anonymously, like what the correct solution is, what are some common errors. I teach math, so it's really helpful to break down some of those errors that students are making over and over again. So subjectively, I would say measuring the engagement of activities like that allow for a little bit more of a collaborative classroom experience that previously would have been done on paper and pencil, and it would have been brought up and turned in, and just kind of a longer process. Now it is streamlined in this app that students really appreciate and enjoy spending time on. So
we use that a lot, the just-in-time teaching and learning. So I use Nearpod quite a bit, Socrative. There are so many options that we have to collect information and instantly see whether the students are getting things or not getting things. So we can then readjust our teaching. So, we focus on big tests a lot, the summative assessment, but every day, multiple times throughout classes, we're formatively assessing students to see where our teaching needs to go. And we've already pre-planned, what students might need. We have ideas in our back pocket as to which direction the lesson will go. But as we get information from them, using these ways to collect their knowledge, we can then reassess. The other thing too is that I feel like we are also very mobile. So with the iPad, we are constantly moving around the room, looking at what students are doing. They're able to put their work up on the smart board with a quick flick. Once we've gotten the Apple TV, it really changed a lot because they're able to share their work in just an instant. And so, there's nothing, the teacher is never stuck in the front of the room, the students are never stuck where they are. So, the mobility and the flexibility is very huge.
In terms of numbers specifically in measuring impact of technology, I would recommend the following measures. So first of all, the number of classes that use technology in the school and the number of students that use the technology in the classroom. And secondly, the average, okay, so I've worked over a few summers in coding and in the technology space, and one common use of testing in that space is called A/B testing. So using a certain set of guidelines and then using another set of guidelines, then comparing the two. So in that vein, I think that one good way to measure the impact of technology would be having trial classrooms, maybe using a different set of technologies, whether it be one using iPads, one using MacBooks, and then measuring the average amount of instructional time versus setting up time in each of those classrooms could be an effective way to measure the impact.
Yeah, you mentioned time, and I think that's the most valuable thing that we all have. And as an educator with 43 minutes in your classroom, getting everything you can out of those 43 minutes is incredibly essential to our everyday productivity. You have Todd Miller teaches AP Economics, and it's a lot of economics to get through. Just having that technology which allows him to do more things in a time-efficient manner, but then to grade those things in a more time-efficient manner, which leaves more time to plan better, I think is immensely important for what we're doing. You know, the impact might be a little difficult to measure in a numbers game. Is this absolutely making these test scores better? I'm not sure you can necessarily say that, but is it making our students more creative, more collaborative, better communicators, more energetic to be in the classroom, better organized? That kind of stuff, I really think that you can measure to a certain extent. You can see it in the classroom just by observing the way the students are interacting with the teachers, their peers, and the technology. You know, I think a fear is that they get so embedded in their technology, but I can tell you that their ability to text each other and send messages, to meet up and do things, they're socializing, and technology's not taking away from that. If anything, it's enhancing that socialization, and that's another thing I think that we can very easily measure with the impact of technology. And I know it's a fear for a lot of people with technology in the classroom. So, if anything, so far it's made my students more collaborative and social in that aspect.
In the language classrooms for English language, as well as some of our upper level French and German classes are 2-level classes, 4 or 5 honors, or 2-3 because of space or time. So when you have multiple levels of students learning a language in one classroom, it's hard to reach all of those students at one time. So having one-to-one devices and or iPads allows us to differentiate to all of our different students' needs. I know during my 5th period, for example, I have 7 beginner students in there at the same time as I have my advanced students. So I have my beginner students working on various apps like Rosetta Stone or Fast Forward, Read Theory, and they can be self-governing, and then I can go in on my end during my prep period and see what levels they've accomplished and where their needs are and where I need to address them when I do have time with them one-on-one. But it also allows me to then work with my intermediate advanced students when I do have them just that one period. So that is a huge thing for me, is being able to differentiate for all the students. And I can measure that by looking at some of the evaluative things on the apps.
As a teacher, it gives me more tools. And I go back to this weekend. Now, you've got to understand, I am a man, so I love tools. And I have a lot of tools. But I don't really know how to use any of those tools. And my wife wonders, why are you buying another tool? I said, I got to, you know, there's a membership in the neighborhood that I got to be a part of. And so this weekend, I had a toilet problem. I have a new respect for plumbers. But back to this tool. I didn't know anything about a toilet. So I Googled it, I YouTubed, I watched a video. And that's what technology will do. But it's the tools that allowed me to fix that toilet. And that's what the iPad is. The iPad is a bunch of tools. I have all these apps, all these different things I can use with my class that allow me to be more creative, that allows me to put the focus on the student. So it's that bag of tools is what makes me a better teacher.
All right, how about if we move on to Schoology? So Schoology is the district's learning management system. Is there someone who'd be interested in explaining to the group what Schoology enables students and or teachers to be able to do?
Schoology is an app and a website that Radnor uses, and it enables communication between different groups such as clubs, classes, and just different courses. Teachers can post course updates. They can also post grades or just any information, and then clubs also use it. They can post what a meeting is to just share information.
Schoology has been a huge asset to us, and I think almost every teacher at Radnor High School would almost agree with that. First off, the amount of paper we're saving is huge. And that's obviously has an environmental impact, which I like to see, but it has a cost-saving impact as well for the district. So the ability for us to put the resources online, you know, we can organize our classes in, you know, topics or units and what we're doing in those units. And students can access that stuff anytime they want. I was an incredibly forgetful middle schooler, which probably a lot of middle schoolers are. And my mom always had to run me back to the middle school to go get whatever worksheet I forgot. Students don't have to do that anymore. They have it right there. They just need to go on their iPad or laptop or desktop at home and pull it right up, and they have it, and it's there. So that alone has been tremendous. When students are out sick, they come in, they're like, oh, I did that already. It's brilliant. They're already keeping themselves caught up, and we know how intrinsically motivated Radnor High School students are for the most part, right? They are on top of their stuff. They want those good grades, and they're doing things when they're out of school. Or they're sending you a Schoology message, and those Schoology messages come right to our phones. I can tell you, and I think Allie could tell you, I answer those messages pretty quickly. They come right, I get an update to my phone, a notification, and boom, they get their answer. Before midterms, you can open chat rooms through Schoology, right, a district-run website, and do almost tutoring with the kids to get them ready for your midterm or your final or a big test you're having. Schoology and most learning management systems are really, I think, revolutionizing the efficiency of our students and of our faculty.
In terms of like a couple examples that I have for Schoology, so firstly, I take AP European History with Mr. Richard Dunbar at school, and he, for a great class, but his outlines for each chapter number, you know, anywhere from like 8 to 20 pages. So to print that out would be very time consuming and costly, and to be able to access that on Schoology and then use that in a Notability or Word document is very helpful. And also, I partake in Model UN, which requires me to miss school whenever we go on one of those trips. And just recently, I've had 2 consecutive weeks in which I've participated in Model UN, which has caused me to miss quite a bit of school time. But thanks to Schoology, I was able, yesterday for example, to come home, see that I had missed a few Spanish assignments, finish them all, and submit them before the beginning of school today. So I am effectively completely caught up and not behind on anything. And I think that's something that Schoology or any learning management system can effectively provide.
Anybody else?
I just remember when I first came to the district, is this on?
Yes.
Okay. Closer. When I first came about 6 years ago, we knew we had a need for this, but we weren't sure which way to go. Do you remember, Todd? I mean, it was, we were trying this and we were trying that, and then teachers were all on different platforms, and so students had different logins. And I think this was just a complete game changer with us, with the communication and the ability to keep ourselves organized and in touch with everybody all the time. I immediately knew that it was something that I wanted for the library also, and I've just been adding kids into a library group, so now I can remind them of the passwords that they need for the databases or the certain links or highlight book clubs or anything like that. So just, you know, to be able to get messages out really fast and quick, and yeah, I remember what it was like before, and it was just unbelievable. And I think on that note, what we have also been missing is the collaboration piece. So the fact that we're moving to Microsoft 365, or, you know, we sort of needed that G Suite, something where we can collaborate on documents with students. You know, that piece, I think, will be just as big of a help to keep the conversation going back and forth with our students.
Does anyone else have a question or anything you'd like to hear from the teachers or students before we let them go?
Well, are they going to stay for the rest of the presentation, or is this sort of their input?
We were going to have them leave afterwards.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to know how long.
They're welcome to stay, of course.
You're not. I just wanted to know at what point, yes, you know, we could ask. So this is your chance, people.
So I guess my question
for the students would be, how often do you guys find you're actually, whatever the device is that you end up getting in a classroom, do you expect to be using that to take your notes? This is just too.
Well, I use mine every single day to take notes, and I find it so helpful because you don't need to worry about losing papers or necessarily getting out a pencil or a pen. If you forget all of that and just have your iPad, you can still take notes, and it's really effective. You can color code them, you can highlight, same things as paper can do, and even more. You can move stuff, like you can cut it out and paste it, whereas if you were just taking paper notes, you couldn't do that.
Yeah, so I use my laptop rather than my school-issued iPad every day for most classes. And I would actually add that I would personally prefer to see MacBooks or another laptop or computer replace iPads as the one-to-one device due to the following reasons. So firstly, MacBooks or computers are used in the workplace, as we see here in this very room. And also, Microsoft Office is a critical tool to use in that workplace and can really only be used on MacBooks or other computers. They're used in college. You can use them to type longer papers. Typing is a skill that we need to give our students. And also, it's less likely that students will be playing games on a laptop than an iPad in class, which is an issue. Yes, that's it.
So what percentage do you think of the class, I mean, and maybe the teachers have thought of it, I mean, how much of the class is taking their notes? And by way of background, I went to law school when everybody started using laptops to take all their notes, and I love technology. I actually gave mine up after the first year because I found my notes were far less effective than when I handwrote them. I didn't remember anything I typed. You guys are a different generation, I get that, but it wasn't as meaningful or useful to me. So I'm just trying to understand, there are students who learn better by handwriting. Is there going to be an expectation that they'll all switch over, or will it be?
You know, it's sort of mixed. I would say 92% of the kids in the classes are either typing on their iPads or writing on the iPads.
Okay.
But in all my classes, like I look at my integrated class today, out of the 24 kids, 7 of them bring in their computers, and then the rest use their iPads. So most of them are taking notes. I have maybe 2 girls in one class that like to use paper. One girl, she uses her iPad, takes her notes, and then goes home and writes them on paper because she learns by rewriting.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
I guess that's the teacher. Suppose you're doing a presentation on whatever topic it might be. Do you post what you will be teaching that day? In other words, would the students have access to what we're going to be covering today? Like if you're going to do some kind of a article review, we'll just say. You might post the article, and you can also post the questions kind of like ahead of time. So look, we were talking about trying to capture time. What are some of the things that you do that allows you to do that, capture more time, where you can instruct during the school time rather than?
Yeah, so I use an app, for example, I do like a lot of video questions with the kids. There's a lot of great videos already created or creating them myself. But there's an app called Play Posted that connects through Schoology, in which students outside of school watch those videos and answer questions which get submitted to me. I can review those questions, I can see what they understand or maybe didn't understand, and then I have an idea going into the class about something that I'm going to reinforce and teach about that they already have an idea of. To that end, they're also doing a ton of reading, and Schoology has made that easy because I can put readings right on there for them to go through. They pull it into Notability, they highlight, they margin note, they annotate, they take separate notes. I can either have them send that back to me and I can give them feedback, or they can just have those if we're having, say we're having a class discussion that day. And outside of school, I have them listen to a podcast, which I posted on Schoology, in which they need to take notes and submit those notes, and they needed to find 2 articles themselves and annotate, which they also turn into me. I see that stuff ahead of time, and then we have a class discussion where we're talking to each other. But it's the embedding of technology that helped that lesson run so smoothly.
We also have, on Schoology, there's a calendar feature, and on that calendar feature you can post events. So the students don't submit to events, but for example, if I know an exam is coming up next Tuesday, I might make an event that lasts 6 days, so every day they're getting a reminder, study for the exam that's next Tuesday. And then I'll also put an event on that day that says exam today. I do that for my homework as well. I'll either put it for 1 day or I'll put it for 2 days so that they're reminded of it, because it comes up every time they log into Schoology. They see it on their homepage. So that's a huge help.
And they can sync that calendar into their iPhone to get reminders to it, so which is nice.
Now, speaking about being able to use this, to the optimal level, what type of professional development do you think would be helpful for the teaching staff, so that we understand how to do all this, so we push it across maybe not the entire school, but very close to that.
Yeah, I think it's two things. I think the iPad started in the history department, so we are the ones that have been trained the most. So there is an unfair advantage. We tend to use it more because we've been trained on it, because it started in our 10th grade world studies. So I think it's got to be something school-wide. Now, when we did Schoology, that was something that we did in PLCs. So once a month we would meet, and I would run a session, Michelle would run a session, and we would in-service that way. I think it's crucial that we have someone in the building who's there, who works just on technology, because there are those teachers that want to use it but don't know where to start. So I think that, and if you look at a lot of schools, and I didn't go to the schools when we did the site visits, but most of them had a technology person in that building, and I think that is crucial. So that a teacher can say, I have third period prep. Can you come and show me how to use Nearpod or that app? And I think that is crucial.
Yeah, I would say the best training we've had is from peers, and specifically for me, other math teachers, to see how they're using it in their classrooms, and specifically what type of learning environments it creates in a math classroom. I think math is kind of specific and particular to that. So the best professional development, I would say, has been from math teaching peers for me.
And I would agree, and it's also very cost efficient from our standpoint, because we don't need to bring experts in if we can share the expertise that we have in our staff. So I would applaud you for that. And the last question will be, where do you see us moving with this? What's the next, what's around the corner for what you would like to be able to do with it, or where we will be beginning to move to? And you don't need to answer it now, but later you can submit it towards it. Or if you have something, right?
Well, so one thing that I do is computer science and coding. So last summer, some of you may know, I was working out in San Francisco actually teaching college students how to code. And I think that having computers one-to-one in the school would enable Radnor to bolster their computer science education to new heights, which I think will be very important as time progresses. Because I think that computer science is really affecting all facets of professional life, and it will become increasingly important in the future.
Just to touch off of that, if you all have water bottles in front of you, technology is the reason that they look at the best design with the least amount of plastic. When they talk about manufacturing and shipping, that is all done logistically through technology, and that's the reason that you have it in the store and it's in front of you today. And that's because of those technology skills that students are learning in college or from a high school student, but that we can be doing now in our high schools to give them that advantage ahead of time, so when they get to college, they have a step out of the game, like this young man right here.
One other thing I would add is that Macs specifically are very good for coding. Some of the students in the boot camp over the summer very much struggled because they had Windows devices, which are not conducive to computer science education.
Do you have a Mac t-shirt?
I actually.
Who got to you?
You know, on that note, and you know, along these lines, I think innovation is really going to be the next piece for us. We, in adopting these new things, have learned to replace some of our systems. They've become more efficient, they've been made easier. But I think what we now need to do is use them to create more, to now go from problem solvers to being problem finders and making connections out in the world. You know, it's so easy to Skype in an expert. You know, how often do we do that? I know we do it quite a bit. We Skype in authors and we have people come in, but there's so much that we can do to connect and learn and really, if we have an issue or if we have something that we want to do and play a part in the world, whether it's environmentally or, you know, teaching other people how to code, we're not stuck within our four walls. And I think that we've got to constantly be thinking about what we can do to get out of that thinking.
Yeah. Kind of touch on your question just a little bit further. You know, the first question was, do we even need it? You know, every article I read about instructional technology and technology in education says that you can't just do it halfway. If you're going to want to be a great school and be great with technology, you need to go all the way in. You need to build the best infrastructure. You need the best professional development, and you need the best device. And those three components will build a great instructional technology program at a school, and the benefits of that are tremendous. So just in my own personal research, that was repetition in every article I read.
I thought that was my last question, but that kind of piqued my interest a little bit into that, because one of the things that I do, I'm very concerned about special education. And this is another avenue where technology is moving very rapidly, and it will allow some of our students that are included within a classroom to have something that looks like everybody else has. Because I'm doing a thing about, we used to call them talkers, but the assistive devices. So you can have apps that are put on the thing, so when a child comes into the classroom, they're included. And we can add things to that will help them more than somebody else needs, okay? But they need that, so we can put that into there. So I see it as being very beneficial. And I'm thinking about going to a Mac for some reason. And thank you very much for all this input.
So, and I guess along the lines of where do you see this going? Sorry. Go ahead. Along the lines of where do you see this going? Is there a push, or was it part of your conversations that we're looking to move exclusively or more primarily to electronic textbooks? I know there are only a certain number of courses that do that currently, but is that part of the plan?
Well, it's hard because up until recently, textbook companies haven't made that easy. I can talk for two teachers in my department, AP Government and AP American Studies, both of which the textbooks are online, both of which comes with resources that the teachers have. You know, differentiation, I'm going to give you these questions or that question. So textbook companies are now beginning to get into that piece of it. Most now, when I'm looking at books to order for the next 2 years, most of them with the book, you get a 6-year online membership, and then after that 6 years is up for a small price, you can purchase more years. So I think textbooks are moving towards that, but that's just a recent thing.
And for students who have a preference, would there still be, like, I know
my
daughter last year, like the National Geographic was their curriculum for social studies, and there were a couple of books if kids really wanted them, so that's still an option.
You still have to buy the book.
Okay.
They were running a pilot in government where we didn't have to buy the book, but the publishers probably thought, I'm not making enough money. So now next year, I have to buy the AP Government book in order for the kids to have all that online material. So we do have a book if they want to use it, or they can use it online, or both.
I've actually taken both AP US History and AP Government, which I'm currently in. And the online books are actually very helpful and really good. They have like multiple choice questions, you can practice for the tests. They can actually read the book for you, so if you're doing something, you can listen to AP government. Who doesn't want to do that? So yeah, I think they're very, very helpful.
In the Spanish department, we've moved from, since we do have so many online, since our textbooks do have an online component, we've moved to just using a classroom set of the textbooks that the kids keep in the classroom and don't bring back and forth, because they can, we do, and then everything, all the supplementary material we're able to post on Schoology, and then they just pull onto their iPad. So we only use the textbooks in class, and they're not going back and forth, so the life of the textbook is also extended because it's just stays in the classroom and isn't getting destroyed in their locker.
Yeah. You know, and I guess my concern though is there are some people, the same way some people need to write it out, some people just can't read it online, and or you can read it online, but you don't process it and understand it the same way. So I just want to make sure that there's still some availability for students who.
Yeah, for sure. We so just to follow up, since we do the classroom set, the students who do need an extra set at home, if it's listed on their IEP, or if they just say, you know, it helps me to just have the book in front of me, then of course we will sign out a book to them.
And we probably have time for one more question.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I actually going back to two and then pass it to Kimmy. Yeah. I want to get back to, I think it was Ms. Wetzel and Nat Torresini. You said that the iPad allowed you to be more mobile when you're going around the classroom. What if it were a laptop? Would you lose that mobility that you really appreciated by having a laptop? An iPad.
Go first. Thanks.
I'm trying to thank you. I think it would kind of depend on what we went with. I mean, if it was something more like a slate where it was a laptop that was able to be converted and written on with a stylus, then it would have the same functionality. But I know that a lot of math teachers do walk around and do the problems at the same time, and we can also, they gauge if the students are following along. I know for myself, they do creation with different sites or research, and they're sending it to me. So I know that I probably could be at the teacher station in the front looking to see what they're doing also, but it is easier to walk around. I'd rather be in with the students. I don't want to be locked down somewhere.
I didn't want to give my opinion on the device today, but I'm not that I'm going to do that. It's a laptop for a reason, with the first word being lap, and the idea is that it sits there. Do I think that's bad? No. Can I move more with the iPad? Yes. But if I'm a group of students, can I take that iPad to the hallway? Can I take it to a table? Can I take it to the library? Yeah, that's still mobile in that sense. As a teacher with my Nearpod presentation up, is it a little more cumbersome to have a laptop while you walk around the room? Maybe, but I can put that on a desk and talk and walk and then come back and hit the button. So, yeah, I mean, iPad's definitely more mobile, but.
The nice thing about whether you go with a laptop or a iPad, it's really what the kids have in front of them. I don't really need to have a lot in front of me, because the kids have it in front of me. If I'm Nearpod, they have it in front of them. So, yes, obviously iPads are more mobile, but it's really about what the kids have in front of them. And my concern was, and I think the district is moving in the right direction, I have a desktop computer, I have an iPad, I have a computer at the front of the room, and the district, I think, wants to streamline that a little. And I have trouble saying that I could do everything on my iPad. I couldn't. I tried it. I did a little experiment where I tried to do a digital experiment on my iPad and my laptop. I was way more efficient on my iPad or on my laptop than I was the iPad. So I think it's what the kids have in front of them is what makes a difference.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. That's very helpful. And I just want to ask the students really quickly. You mentioned that you take your notes on your iPad. How do you do that without a keyboard?
Well, Notability does have a feature in which you can write. So I actually have a stylus and I write out my notes, which helps because you're still getting the same benefits as writing out your notes as you would be with paper. But it also gives me the option to have a keyboard, whereas laptop you do or you don't unless you get a special kind. And I do have an attachable keyboard, which I do like, so I also get the typing skills, and it's really up to my choice.
This is what that looks like, sorry, notability. I was at a conference, and so I was taking notes and highlighting, and then I took a picture of one of the handouts. I took a picture of a slide that was on the board, and then I was able to annotate that slide right there on Notability. And then Notability also allows the students to really stay organized, because you can organize into different classes, and then within those classes you can have dividers, units and whatever, and then there's the different files. So I find that a lot of my students that do have that kind of lack of organizational skills, if it's because of their ADHD or if they're just not organized. I have a student with ADHD, and he says, I am so organized on my iPad because I don't have to organize my pages. I've watched him, he puts it in each little class when he gets something from Schoology, he puts it in the right place. Whereas if I hand him a piece of paper, it'll be lost by the end of the class period because he's not gonna, open a binder and put it in. But when he just pulls it directly from Schoology on his iPad, it's organized and he can find it.
Thank you so much. I'm not going to ask you to commit to vice. I just want to know, I am concerned about the fluidity of writing. And I'm wondering, teachers, if you see less proliferative writing or quality of writing, because there's no keyboard necessarily. And do we provide keyboards, and how does that all fit in with having an iPad?
I think, we're fortunate in the sense that a lot of us have a laptop card left over from classrooms in the future. So a lot of times when an English teacher wants to write an essay, they get out the laptop cards and they type the essay. I don't know if you could talk about from a student's point of view. A lot of students have the attached keyboard and they're fine doing it on their iPad.
Yeah, I use a laptop, and I actually tried to use my iPad in the past, and I found that writing on the iPad or typing directly on the iPad screen, because I do have an attached keyboard, is I think you're absolutely right. It's not very conducive to very fluid, long-form writing. So that's why I do prefer the computer.
Well, I have to tease you because you showed up with a notebook and pen today.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I actually agree. I don't find it as effective or efficient just to type directly on the iPad. However, I do have an attached keyboard, so maybe getting attached keyboards for more students if they want could be a good option. However, I don't know if financially that's something that we should prioritize.
And we'll talk about that.
Okay. And I think most long form writing is being done, we do a lot of it in school, but that's the time for me to get in there with them and talk and teach and do cool things. And if I want them to write me a 5-page essay, they're gonna do some of that work in my class, but a lot of that is gonna be done at home. And we need a device that they can do that at home, but a lot of them have other devices at home in which they prefer typing on than the iPad. I'm not saying iPad's the right device, but if you're worried about writing skills, I think if you go to any of the English classes, I don't think that the iPad's necessarily taking away from building those skills, and I think a lot of the longer form, not short response questions, are being done at home. And I think that's true since forever. Any essay I've ever written, my teacher wasn't taking out a computer lab and putting their feet up and drinking coffee while I wrote a 5-page essay. They're assigning it, teaching me how to do it, teaching me what a thesis statement was, then I'm going and doing it on my own to practice. So.
All right. Thank you to our committee for coming in. Really appreciate you being here. You are welcome to stay if you'd like to stay. It's up to you.
I want to thank all of you for your input. It was I know this took a lot of your time too, so I really appreciate it. For sharing.
Okay.
You'll delay.
So let's get a little bit into the nitty-gritty, and we'll start some of our conversation today, and then of course we'll be able to get into it again next month, as we have some open agenda time next month as well. Last month you had an opportunity to look at the goals. You had a separate handout that had the goals and goal measurements listed on it that was also posted this month as well, because they have remained the same. I do want to point out that although we're not going to talk specifically about it today, we are going to be looking at goal number 5, which talks about developing that curriculum and awareness and the practices to increase that healthy and safe use of technology. That whole idea of balance that we talked about before, where students were aware of, when technology adds to our learning and our social life, and when it might be a deterrent. So we will talk more about that, but if that will not be part of our talk today, because we're going to focus on those questions 3 and 4. So question number 3 talked about the device and the level of access that would provide the optimal learning experience for our students and help us to meet the district goals. We went through this list last time. Do the Radnor High School students need a personal device? These were the key ideas that built up to the top, and as I think someone mentioned earlier, we do have 13 courses right now using online textbooks. It's not a standard practice, but we do consider that every time we look at curriculum materials. We talked about preparing students to be ready for post-secondary education. Schoology, you heard a lot about today. Students use it in school, out of school, and obviously they use their device to access it. Different things we talked about last time. We saw improvements in accessing resources, communication, being organized, and collaborating with students. We talked about our shopping list last time, and this was really, and I won't go through the bullet list again, but what we really heard throughout this study was that our students need a full service workstation. So the idea of, well, I do my iPad and I do Notability, but then I bring my laptop because I like to type papers on it, and then when I need to print something, I log on in the library and I print something there. We have accumulated a large number of devices at the high school. But it's like 2.2 to 1 or something like that. But what has happened is, even when Mr. Miller talked about bringing out the laptop carts, we've heard from our teachers and our students, the laptops and the carts are old, they're slow, they're cumbersome to work with, it takes time to pass them out. So the idea of working towards a place where we have fewer devices, but devices that are very efficient, they're well maintained, they run on a great network, they're solid state, instant on. When I walk into a 42-minute class, the second minute of class, I'm able to be on my device and working. So this was basically our list we looked at, and yes, the keyboard was a big deal. It was a big deal to parents, it was a big deal to students, particularly when we got to those questions when we said, well, if you had to pick one device, what would it be? It would be something with a keyboard. So we got into the idea of the budgetary implications. So I know, we got into this to look at iPads. Are they worth the amount of money that we're spending and whatnot? And of course, we kind of opened the lid on every pot and moved into something that a need that financially is going to be a bigger ticket item than what we had before. In order for us to move to a full service workstation for our students, we're looking at a price range, somewhere between $800 and $875 a student, even with the purchasing power of a school district and the advantages and opportunities that we have. Again, a device that a student could use in class, at home, typing the paper, going on, OneNote, whatever it is, rather than switching devices or bringing out old devices, that would be their go-to device. So that's an area where we're predicting there would be a cost increase. There will also be some costs obviously associated with transitioning to a new device. We're looking at reducing things and selling things off and whatnot, but there will be some transition time there where we're tweaking some of those operating systems and whatnot. There will be a cost associated with improving our wireless network. There's really no sense in us purchasing any devices unless we have an internet system at the high school that is working for us, is reliable, teachers can plan lessons on it, students know that they can go to it to get their work done. We did hear from our students and from teachers that they do still want to have access to printing. Sometimes there are things that you need to print. We're not going to print everything that we create, but we do from time to time need to print something, write on it, hand it in, etc. And then, of course, we started to talk today about the professional development to support the specific technology goals we have. We do anticipate there would definitely be some cost savings or reductions using the same device for multiple purposes. You heard Mr. Miller say today he's got a desktop on his teacher desk, he's got a docking station where he runs his smart board, he has a laptop he takes home, he has an iPad, he goes in his office, he's got another desktop in there. So using the same device for multiple purposes, reducing the number of devices we have, and not having to refresh all of those devices. Our goal that we shared last time was reducing the number of devices at Radnor High School by 30%. We would be selling off some of the obsolete and redundant equipment, so things that aren't working for us anymore. There are certain companies that, you know, even the old Classrooms for the Future machines that we really shy away from using at all anymore, you know, you can get $25 or $50 for them. Reducing the refresh cycle. We've had machines that we've kind of pushed off, you know, well, we won't replace those this year, we'll try to save that for next year. Fewer machines mean a shorter refresh cycle for us. So not only can we put newer machines in place, but we know that every 5 years, those machines are going to be replaced with newer machines, and we have that built into our budget. And then, of course, reducing the overall maintenance of those machines. So it costs more time and costs more money to maintain 2,265 devices than it does to maintain 1,600 devices. More time with the staff, the technology staff, you know, fewer pieces of hardware we have to buy and whatnot. We are using E-rate to subsidize some of the wireless improvements. Byron already has a request in with them to purchase some additional access points. That is a significant cost savings for us. And then the last thing that I really want to talk about today is this idea of honoring families' preferences regarding the acquisition and maintenance of student devices. We specifically asked parents in our survey and in our focus groups about devices and acquiring devices for students and how they would like to see that happen. And these were some of the things that we heard from them. They wanted us as a district and the district experts here in technology to research and select what we believed was the best device. So they were comfortable putting that in our hand, and they actually preferred that it was handled that way. They want us to maintain and service the device. You know, you have multiple children at home, you have multiple devices, you know, now your mom and your tech support. So they were really in support of the idea of us maintaining and servicing those pieces. The parents told us that when we gave students iPads at the high school, they went out and purchased laptops for their students. And you heard them talking about how they bring their laptop to school, or they'll go home and work on a laptop or whatever. But when we asked parents the reverse question, if we bought them a laptop, would you buy them an iPad? They weren't so sure about that. So even with the parents, the go-to machine, the go-to device was the laptop. Parents are willing to contribute to the cost of the device. We gave parents percentages on the survey. I think it was 70% of them went up to about 60% of the cost of the total device. And right now they're contributing, our freshman parents are contributing about $40, and our upperclassmen that had the newer iPads, I believe their annual contribution was $70 towards their insurance fees and whatnot. So we put together what we thought would be, we'll call it a student benefit package, that would be appealing to our students, appealing to our parents, and also work within the structure that we have at school here to support technology. What we're looking to provide for students is a one-to-one personal device with a useful life beyond 4 years. So students are here for 4 years. We don't want to be replacing devices for sophomores and juniors, or having students get to their senior year when they're telling us they're writing the most papers, doing the most research, and now my machine is slow or weak or broken or in need of repair. We want to give them access to the device both in and out of school and year-round. We want to cover their insurance. Obviously, we cover their wireless access at school, their virus protection, help desk support. Our students have hours during the day where they can stop in the technology office. You know, I can't log on, my software isn't working, I need an upgrade, I need to download some type of a new edition of something. We have all of those things. We provide our students with software. If you ever gone out and bought a new laptop and then realized you needed the new version of Word or Microsoft Office, looked at the price tag, it's not cheap. So we provide our students with the software. We also have web filtering, and we have web filtering here. Even when students bring their own technology, we use security filters and filter what students are looking at. Access to print stations, which we already talked about. We handle the repairs and maintenance. And you heard Cameron say today, that sense of responsibility that comes with having a device that's your own, that's your personal device. So students would keep the device at the end of the 4 years. They would take it with them, if they wanted to take it to college or pass it down to a younger sibling or something like that. It would be available for them to do that. So when we look at that package and we talk about the cost of a full service workstation versus what we're going to be budgeting for the annual leases of iPads, we come up with a financial gap, which per student comes somewhere between $480 and $555. We're trying not to talk specifically about an exact device like the 2.0 Windows, Microsoft Air, blah blah blah, because we know that technology changes all the time. We could talk about a specific machine today and turn on Good Morning America tomorrow and find out that Microsoft has come up with a $99 laptop they're going to be selling to schools that does everything you could possibly imagine. But if we look at the devices available to us right now, this is the price point that it puts us at, and this is the gap that we come up with when we do that. So how do we plan to address this? One of the sheets that I gave you today was this chart. It's a cost comparison chart, and what the cost comparison chart does is it looks at all of those things on that student's benefit package that we as a district are able to provide to them here in school in a fairly cost-effective way because we're doing it for a great number of students. And then we also looked at those costs on the retail market. So for instance, let's say that we were going to purchase our students a MacBook Air that they would use here at school during the 4 years that they were on campus. If a parent were to go out and buy that on the retail market, they would be talking $999 for a machine. They'd be talking $249 for the Apple Care insurance, which would of course include their virus protection. If you wanted to have just a student version of Microsoft Office, you're talking about another $60 for software. The print stations obviously don't come with a computer. The web filtering, as a parent, you can go out, you can buy different softwares and whatnot, but realistically, that's somewhat challenging to do kind of on a machine by machine basis or as a family. As far as the Helpdesk, I know like Apple has their Genius Bar, and I know if you've ever tried to make an appointment, sometimes it's like 3 or 4 or 5 days later at 9:15 at night or something like that. And then also repairs and maintenance, and this is something we heard from our parents too, that it really is dependent on the level of expertise of the student, the parent, the family members, whomever it is that is kind of like your go-to person for technology. So just those known costs we have down there, parents would be looking at spending in excess of $1,300 for a machine like that. We were talking about looking at the price point at which we were able to acquire the machine and the services that we provide students here in school as owners of those one-to-one devices. If we were to supplement those costs with a user fee, a technology fee per student of somewhere between $129 and $139, we would be able to acquire a full-service workstation like a MacBook Air at the same price point as we were providing iPads, and parents would be able to acquire a laptop with full service for their students with a cost of ownership just over $500. So it's less than half of what you would spend purchasing on your own, and you as a parent aren't walking away with the responsibility of maintaining it and taking care of it and things like that. We looked around. We have some different price point comparisons from other districts. Most districts are charging a fee. Most call it an insurance fee. Some are allowing students to keep their devices. I know, our neighbor Lower Merion is probably what people are most familiar with as far as they buy MacBook Airs for their students. The students do not keep them, and they pay $70 a year for insurance and their self-help software downloads and whatnot. So basically, at the end of the 4 years, the district is selling the machines for $200 on eBay. We can add that $50 a year to the cost, the technology fee for the parents and the students, and then the students walk away with the device at the end. So it relieves us of the burden of marketing them on eBay and packing them up and shipping them out, stripping all the confidential information from them, being responsible for that. And it also allows basically a service or an advantage for our families or our parents that they're able to acquire those for their students at a very reasonable cost. You can see the full gamut of costs and fees in different districts. Downingtown, for the MacBook Airs, is charging $200 a year per student, and you can find just about everything in between. We have districts, buying $315 iPads and charging $70 a year, and students aren't keeping them at the end of the 4 years. So we think this puts us in a position where we get some buy-in from the parents, buy-in from the family. We're putting a little skin in the game and contributing some funds. We're offering an academic service here where, we're making sure these machines are running well. Every teacher knows that when their 23 students sit down in front of them, they're going to have machines that are running at peak performance and ready to go. And it just, to us, we think this is a win-win. All right. As far as, and we can talk about that. This is the last slide. We can come back and answer some questions about that as well. As far as the timeline to think about finances, what we would look at is in year one, which would be next year, we would be purchasing teacher devices. Our plan as of today, if nothing else changes in the techno world, is that our teachers would be getting MacBook Pros. And we have actually mined enough money out of our refresh budget, so instead of refreshing some of this old equipment that we have laying around, we can repurpose that money in order to purchase those machines for our teachers. We would spend next year improving the wireless system. We would also be reducing the devices across the district, across the high school, begin the professional development for teachers, and then again, we would be finalizing that student device choice. So again, if we were buying machines for everyone next year, it would likely be the MacBook Airs, but now we're talking about buying machines 18 months from now, so things could change. Year two, we would be purchasing for cohort 1, and year 3 would be purchasing for cohort 2. Whether cohort 1 is, freshmen and sophomores, and then cohort 2 is juniors, that was really going to depend where the machine's price points are at that time, and what the financial picture looks like. But the goal would be to have the high school repurposed by the end of year 3. All right, does anybody have any questions?
What year is year 1?
Next year, 18-19.
I have a question, actually a couple up there, I think they're quick. So back to the Lower Merion camera scandal.
Mm-hmm.
So what would we do, say we did agree to go with laptops, what would we do to ensure that that doesn't happen here?
Well, just about any device that we purchase would have a camera, like the iPads have a camera, the telephones have a camera. And we put a lot of procedures in place as far as remoting into machines, and it's not just student machines, it's also, employee machines. We have a policy in place now that, no one remotes into a machine without contacting the person who's been issued that device and getting permission from them. So, as far as that specific incident, we already have procedures in place that would avoid that.
Okay, so my next question is, what are we going to do about students that are on free or reduced lunch plan that this might be a financial hardship for?
Yeah, good question. So we'll have some triggers in place both for that, and some districts have put in kind of family caps as well. So if you have 3 students at the high school, we'll have to look at how those numbers all shake out when we finalize things. But we have many opportunities to support students. Our community is very generous. In fact, when we were talking with the core team at the high school, about this initial idea of having a technology fee. One of the teachers said, well, when you send out the sheet and say to parents, you know, pay your $129, ask them if they would be able to, would they be interested in sponsoring another student at the high school, and pay their $129 for someone who, you know, maybe was unable to do it. And the teacher was actually a parent in the district and said, I would do something like that. That would be like a worthwhile donation. So, you know, we have the Radnor Education Foundation is very generous. Our parents are very generous. You know, we have many avenues to take care of those kinds of things.
So we're looking at a plan right now to phase it in. What do we do when there are kids in one cohort and kids in another cohort in the same class with different technologies?
Yes, that is a challenge. So what we will do for next year is we will be providing iPads for our 9th grade students for the high school next year. So that won't be an issue next year. The year after, our goal would be to do at least 2 grade levels that year, so hopefully freshmen and sophomores. But for the juniors and seniors, we are still going to have to keep some of those laptops available, some of those other devices.
And I also want to add that I think this township is very good at being generous for the lower end of the bell curve. I always think about the middle part of the bell curve. The families that, sure, they can afford it when they make adjustments to their lifestyles to figure it out, or, you know, who do without to make it work. I think there are so many people like that, and I hate to take it for granted that just because they're not on the low edge of the bell curve, that it's no big deal for them to afford that. I want us to be super sensitive toward that and not make any assumptions.
Yes,
I don't have answers for it.
And I think the idea of that family cap is helpful with
That's
that
helpful.
too. But the other way, I think this is supportive too, is, you know, if you're in that situation where, well, everyone's in that situation, you buy this, you don't buy that. I mean, it's all about choices. You know, finances are a finite thing. But the opportunity, you know, if you were already going to purchase a device for your child, to get the device at a discounted price, I think that's going to benefit everyone, every parent, every family, regardless of their financial situation.
That's my question. So if or when we switch devices, I guess, would every student be required to switch devices? Because I know now, not every student has a school-issued iPad or device, and they bring in their own. Would it be required of them to use that device? Or?
So as of right now, we do purchase an iPad for every student at the high school, but we do still have bring your own technology. So if students decide there's a device that's more fitting, that's able to meet their needs, we don't have a lot of students taking advantage of that right now. I think the most obvious, you know, bring your own technology is most students at the high school bring a phone and they hook it up to our network or our Wi-Fi or whatever, and, you know, they use it during school, sometimes for school purposes, sometimes, you know, not for school purposes, so that would still be an option.
I just have a question as far as the cost. Is there any consideration to offer, some families are going to want to purchase these devices along the line anyway, offering families from the get-go the option to purchase it from the start rather than just contribute? Is there any consideration to, you know, so like basically instead of paying my $70,
oh, you mean just pay the whole $516 at the beginning?
Is there any consideration to offer families the option to buy it? Some parents are going to want to have a device for their kids anyway. So is there a way to consider that for the district?
Well, I think you're going to have that anyway.
Okay.
Turn your mic off.
That's what I just wanted to see.
You've got the use of it for all 4 years and the summer, and then you keep it when you graduate.
Okay.
So I think that's really the same thing.
I don't know if kids would keep it when they graduate.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So the idea would be, and that's not, well, it's not just for students and families, that's also works very much to our advantage. Having to manage, you know, 320 devices that the senior class leaves behind, and now, you know, you're scrubbing hard drives and, you know, bidding on eBay or shipping them or getting a company to come in. The value of them to us at that point is just not that.
I had a couple questions. I know battery life was one of the things that we talked about, but if any of these students is at all like me, I forget to charge things. Or do we have plans for, do we already have in place charging stations or some ability to plug in class? Because I guarantee you a significant number of them are going to forget. and they're gonna get halfway through the day and not.
Yeah, we have that issue with the iPads too.
Yeah, right, so I guess that was my plan.
So we
along with
have some
updating
charging
learning.
stations now, and different teachers have different, things in their classroom, but that's something that we have to look at. I know some districts that we visited, they went to, some little counters around the building.
Little lockers you can plug in.
Yeah, they can put things in there, or, even one of the schools we were at, they took out a lot of their lockers, their physical lockers, because the students don't use them anymore, they don't have that much stuff. So they made, sort of a little countertop like you'd see at Starbucks or something, we can plug things in and charge them. But, like I said, one of the many reasons we were looking towards going with an Apple device is to get, the extended life expectancy of the battery, the quick startup when, the solid state technology students turn it on in the classroom, and then also just the lifespan of the device itself.
So I guess the other thing, I thought I heard you say that our current refresh cycle is a 5-year period.
Well, it's a 5.
This would turn it into a 4-year period, so that's why I was just wondering.
It would turn it into a 4-year period for students, but we would still work towards a 5-year cycle for our teachers and the devices we had around the building.
Okay.
But I mean, we have many devices that are going, like our teacher devices, I think are on year 6 or 7 at the high school. So, it's a big nut to look at when you look at technology, and when the budget gets tight at the end of the year, it's like, well, can you push this off one more year or that off? And we've done that for several years in a row, which at this point, honestly, it really is working in our favor, because, nobody's gonna cry when we wheel away 8-year-old classroom to the future laptops. They'll be like, yay.
Okay, and then do we have plans for, I know printing was one of the things we focused on. Is the expectation that whatever device we get will have the ability to print both at home and at school, so that,
we have to look at both of those things. So we had talked initially, like if you're a student at a university, very often, every semester you get 500 copies, and but apparently that's a pretty sophisticated piece of software that has to be set up. So we're looking at, probably some stationary print stations. We want to have printing available, but we don't want to make it too convenient, like there's a printer in every corner. So it'll probably be a place where students will go and, plug in or dock or something like that in order to print.
I think the last thing, and I was thinking a lot about the teachers from this standpoint. I know one of the things that we cut in previous years was the technology, like a dedicated technology support person. I heard both things from the panel. I heard one person say it's very helpful to learn from peers, and another person say it's really helpful if there's somebody who's dedicated to doing this. Have we considered that? Is that something we're putting into the budget as a line item? Because there's a significant cost.
Well, we talked about a few different things we can do, and I would agree that what we heard from most of the teachers and also from, the high school administration is that the teachers respond best, and it just makes more sense when it's someone from within the faculty. There are some differences, math is a little different using technology than English or something like that. But we're gonna look at a couple proposals, probably something with course consideration, where maybe someone from the staff would have some time available each day, a portion of their day. And then we do also have, right now, we have a technology position in the district. We have Kate McKenna, who's a consultant with us that works right now across all 5 buildings. But the first thing we're going to be looking at is how we can use, the current staffing and the people and the expertise we have. Michelle Wetzel, the librarian, is a fabulous resource for technology. Fran Meissner, who's the coach at the high school, she is wonderful with technology. So, we need to put all of those pieces together and see what we already have there, and then how big of a gap that's going to leave us.
And who's the technology support for the students if there's a problem with their computers? That part of what we're buying, we would be buying from?
We have tech support. We have a tech support staff at the high school.
Okay.
Tech, what are they called? They're not tech liaison, technicians. They're in that tech office right there next to the library. So there's 3 of them that are there regularly, and then depending on, Friday we have technology day, so we have like 7 of them there. So they're there to help the students out. We've also talked, I know Mrs. Kepkes talked early on when we first started talking about Apple, that we could work with students, we could come up with like our own Genius Bar, and we have lots of expertise, just like among our teachers, we have it, among our students as well. So that's another opportunity we can look into.
Yes, I do believe that we can use the teachers as a resource, but what I also took away from is that we need not really technical support. We need technology coaches that are moving us in the direction that we're going in the outside world and are connecting us to the things that are really happening out there. Okay, it's a little tiny bit different. They work with teachers. This is what we're doing, you know, here at Radnor. Okay, this is great. I'd like to do this, and then that person would be very knowledgeable about what's going on in the outside world and say, other people are using this type of technology. They can do presentations together. They can, you know, import videos. They can do this. They can do that. So what I would be looking for would be how are we going to make this more? How are we going to optimize this without having somebody that has the real knowledge above the knowledge that we have to offer within our staff, even though we have a wealth of knowledge. Because if we're going to tap into that, if we decide to tap into the pure knowledge that we have with our staff, we have to create times for them to be free. It's not. So we're then going to have to, that's going to cost. So we need to look at that, because it's not enough to have one period. As someone that, when the technology went down, issues in the classroom would go up, out of control. We did not have the technical support. We did not have the coaching. We did not have that. We were basically there on our own, kind of like what this is. So I think if we do want to continue to go further on and move towards the future, we need to look at, do we need to spend a little bit more money? If we got, and if we hire somebody who can be that technology coach that moves us forward, look for hiring somebody who, or contract, who can also do the professional development piece. So
And
those are some of the things.
we can get some real specifics around that. The reason why we're taking a little bit more of a linear approach here is we have to be comfortable with the technology fee, the price point, so that we can go forward and make the rest of those plans. If we're not comfortable right now with the technology fee and the parent contribution and whatnot, we need to take a few steps back and take another look at our device choice and things like that, which will change everything we're doing with professional development and infrastructure and whatnot. So I think if we take, you know, between now and next month, if we come back and have some more conversations about the technology fee, kind of think about it for a while, see how comfortable we are with it, where it is and what it's providing. And then I think we go on to those next steps and say, okay, we've committed to a full service workstation. What does that require us to do for our teachers? What does that require us to do for our Wi-Fi, you know, our infrastructure, all of those kinds of things. And then we can really work on something specific because it's going to be directly connected to that workstation.
Now, as we move into what we need to do for our professional development, I would recommend that we look at, and I know a lot of people don't like this, so it would be possibly an anonymous survey. It's teacher competency in using the things that they have, and what type of training or professional development would they feel they need so that they can move into this age with everybody else. So we need to get a snapshot of where we are with our staff, okay, how much training they feel they would need, and that would give us the opportunity to look at it and see how we're actually doing right now before we begin. Because many times people put in professional development model before they actually know what it is, what we need. Okay, so I think we need to assess where we're at, and we may have already done that. It's a kind of a tricky thing because if you do it at the end of a professional development and you say what are some of the things that you'd like us to develop, I think if we sent that out rather than even asking them to measure their own competency, maybe we get away from that piece. What are some trainings that you might need to move you into the future with the technology? Well, that's one of the things that I think we might.
Thank you. Great.
Can I just to clarify, because I think I understood, when you talk about buying the MacBook Pros next year as the first step, obviously it sounds like we're committing to the Mac, which I'm not complaining about. But the question I had is that just the high school at this point? Because that's what we're focused on?
Yes.
And then in September, we'll revisit K through 8
Yes.
and what we need there.
And
Okay.
again, much of this process is linear, so, once we make the choice for the high school and put the professional development and the infrastructure piece in place, it's gonna make it a lot easier for us to make the decisions at the middle school and the elementary.
Okay, thanks.
Well, thank you. I know
Thank you,
this was a
Vivian.
lot of work. This is tremendous. This was a great report. I like the way it flows.
Good.
Thank you.
All right.
All right,
So much.
that brings us to the next item on the agenda, any new business? Seeing none, our last public comment, is there any?
Cindy Spurlane. In trying to go over everything that was presented, I was trying to put some of the numbers together. And on the gap analysis sheet, we're looking at the cost of a full-service workstation between $800 and $875. And prior to that, on the chart that was given, or the survey that was taken, the parents, 70% of those who responded to the survey agreed to spending up to 60% of the cost of the equipment. Is that what the financial gap, is that where the financial gap is to come from, this fee, which
No, the
represents-
gap that we're talking about is from, because, we are in a maintenance budget, we've been in a maintenance budget for the last couple of years, so what's currently in our budget, and what would we have to add to that to move to this workstation?
So you're not, at this point, then the user fee would be something new that you're looking at?
The user fee would be the financial gap divided by 4 years.
Yep, which is also equivalent, pretty close to 60% of the 875 cost. The parents have said.
Right.
Okay, so I'm following it right now. One other question. Insurance. No insurance costs, this is all hardware we're talking about.
We're rolling
I
in.
show this insurance that was listed on the cost comparison chart for the parents.
We're including the insurance in the tech fee.
It's
So
on the chart.
It's
Yeah.
part of the, it's part of the.
Right,
tech
it's on
fee.
the chart, it's included, it's in there.
Or included,
Mhm.
in the text. All right. One other quick question. I heard a comment that this is going out 18 months, this purchase, we're looking at maybe 18 months?
We're talking about student machines, so
Student machines,
teacher
but-
machines would be next fall, but student machines would be for a year and a half, so,
Now, when we went with the CAC, who was doing this study, is this in conjunction with what they were working on? You held back on purchasing new equipment for a year to do the study. Does that mean then, not 18 months, but we're 18 adding 12 to it out on the equipment they already have?
no, it would be
No.
September 2019. Right, yeah.
And you held back, you didn't buy anything
No,
this year,
Right, that's what we're using to buy the teacher machines.
so the students are out another, okay. 12 months, thank you.
Okay, seeing no other public comment, we are adjourned. Our next meeting will be March 13th at 5 p.m.